completely dismantle a universally accepted, yet entirely backward, misconception about human dynamics and social approval. If you've ever felt just utterly exhausted by that endless cycle of trying to win people over, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're exploring the psychology of attraction today, but absolutely not through the lens of adding more to your plate. Instead, we're looking at the profound magnetic power of silence and subtraction. Get ready, because this is going to shift your entire paradigm on how value is actually perceived. Let's start with section 1, the illusion of chasing. Okay, let's dive into this. To understand the cure, we first gonna have to identify the disease, right? It's a myth drilled into us from a really young age. The idea that to attract someone, whether that's in dating, networking, or just life in general, you must relentlessly chase, impress, and remain constantly available. We're essentially conditioned to believe that giving away our time and energy for free is the guaranteed key to forging a connection. But if you actually observe the most socially successful, high-value individuals out there, you'll notice they aren't doing any of this. They absolutely aren't running themselves ragged, trying to be seen. That brings us to section 2, the inverted law. So we need to pivot sharply away from that exhausting myth and look at the brutal reality of human behavior. The inverted law is a psychological principle stating that the more you chase something, the faster it runs away from you. Think of your attention and your presence as your psychological currency. Most people are just walking around spending this currency recklessly, throwing it at literally anyone who walks by, essentially begging for attention. But when you aggressively pursue, you're subconsciously signaling that you have an abundance of need and a total lack of inherent value. You are deflating your own worth in real time. It really all comes down to a brutal, simple truth. People only desire what they cannot easily have. True attraction is never a loud, frantic display of desperation. It's a quiet, magnetic force. It's built entirely on self-containment and maintaining strategic emotional distance. Look, if your time and attention are handed out like free flyers on a street corner, they hold no weight. But when your attention is guarded, when it actually requires effort to attain, human nature dictates that its perceived value absolutely skyrockets. Let's move to section 3, the psychological vacuum, and see how this builds. Understanding the theory is one thing, but here are the actual mechanics of how the strategic silence works on the human brain. First, stop over-explaining yourself. When you over-explain, you're subtly asking for permission and validation. Second, lower your social availability. You do not need to be accessible 24/7 to be valued. In fact, the exact opposite is true. Third, maintain an unshakable, calm presence. When you combine these 3 steps, when you pull back that frantic energy, you instantly create a powerful psychological vacuum. You step back and you leave a space. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the brain reacts. The brain naturally fills social silence with curiosity and mystery. Human nature absolutely abhors a vacuum. When you stop flooding the space with your own anxious pursuit, the other person's mind has to step in and do the work. They start wondering about you. Why aren't you chasing? What are you thinking? By doing less, you're actually prompting them to think about you more. You're letting their own imagination build your value. Moving on to section 4, protecting personal value. So the crucial point is that this behavioral shift represents something much deeper on an internal level. It's really about your identity. You're moving away from being the desperate pursuer who offers cheap validation and transforming into the rare prize whose attention actually must be earned. When you implement that psychological vacuum we just talked about, you actively protect your personal value. By refusing to offer cheap validation, you force others to work for your attention. You're no longer on the clearance rack, right? You are locked behind the glass display. Which leads us to our final paradigm shift. Section 5, the subconscious magnet. The ultimate goal of this entire framework is entirely inward. I want to be perfectly clear here. This is absolutely not about playing manipulative, toxic games. It is fundamentally about reclaiming your absolute power. In a world desperate for approval, most people's dopamine triggers are entirely external. They only feel good when someone else validates them. This philosophy shifts those dopamine triggers inward. It teaches you to find complete, unshakable security in your own silence. You become a subconscious magnet not because you're tricking people, but because you are genuinely, completely securing yourself without needing their applause. I want you to really hear this. True power is not about chasing the crowd. It is about building a presence so dangerous and valuable that the crowd naturally flows toward you. That is the ultimate shift. You stop seeking approval and you start commanding natural gravity. A mind that remains completely secure in its own silence is incredibly rare. And because it's rare, it's incredibly valuable. You stop pushing outward and you just let the psychological laws of attraction pull the world toward you. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Are you ready to stop chasing and start attracting, or are you still giving away your value for free? It's a choice you make every single time you interact with the world. I highly encourage you to deeply reflect on your own habits, evaluate where you're actually spending your psychological currency, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me.